what we'd like now is to have people share out with what they have found or what their group has found. So I'll start here. We have a number of groups that do I have a volunteer group? Okay, Peggy, your group.
So we started first by giving the scenario generator like more of a traditional industry related, and it gave us a good response, giving us like how to solve the discussion. But then we thought that we want to be generative on more levels, like not just them, like the AI generating. How about if we want to really contextualize for students who might be anywhere, not just like in the industry, or to focus as educators on how do they think, how do they see that what they're learning is of value. So we actually gave it a prompt for the students, the high school students, to come up with scenarios that are of interest to them. And it did that. It had like it had some neat questions, but then we thought, yeah, but maybe justice and equity is not there. Let's add that. So we added that, and it gave us also. So I don't know, we thought it was like useful, but we're very concerned about the environmental aspect of using AI, and if we use it for everything, whether it is worth using or not, that we also. So that's why we actually started this conversation by, for us to develop ourselves, whether it's skills, knowledge, but also there's wisdom, and we have to discern when and how to use things based on what we see as valuable or what we consider as important to us, but also to the people who work.
So,
that was beautiful.
So a follow-up question. So environmentally, you think maybe it's more important to be able to have water than to have AI?
That's what. Like, one prompt, they say one prompt for Chat GPT takes as much energy and water as manufacturing, I think, a water bottle or something. I think I've read that somewhere. So that's why actually four plants are reopening. Some of the four plants that were supposed to be like stop offline. Now they're back, and they're mostly in local. Right, exactly.
Yeah, there's a water shortages in East Texas because of AI data centers in Central Texas. So water's being diverted from drinking and people in rural areas so that we can have more AI.
The Times this morning actually had an article about a huge area in Western China, like 4 or 5 times the size of Manhattan, that are solar panels that they're using, and they're putting the AI centers there using solar power and some wind, but solar eminently, so that they're actually working on that issue at the same time, trying not to divert all this energy and resources that were supposed to be used for something else. And it's very cold there, so the heat generated by the computers is used to heat the nearby buildings.
But we need to look, because I know in Ohio, there's legislation looking at allowing energy companies to decide where energy will be diverted, like whether it goes to data centers or whether it goes to, houses.
It has already impacted your electric.
The deciders of who gets. And we know that goes to the person with the most money, so.
Yes.
So do we want to shut off everything right now and try to decide how to put the genie back in the bottle?
Of course,
I'm not saying that, I'm just saying we need to consider
Well, yeah, it doesn't have to be either or.
But you need to be cognizant of the.
Yeah,
But
that's-
you're
that's an
exactly
interesting
right. I mean,
question.
there's lots of new things like that. They're building a data center down in northern Louisiana, even as we speak right now, that's going to use twice as much power as the city of New Orleans. That's a bunch, I gotta tell you. And it's gonna take up a huge area. It's resource hungry. No question.
And I think education is also important, educating people about the concept. Like, for example, think about having our like handhelds. Some people just keep them for years because they know there's an environmental impact of changing one every year. And some people say it's so important for them to have a new one every year without. And I think part of that is raising awareness. So it's not, doesn't have to be yes or no, but it's, you know, making an informed decision. Yeah, good.
We could go on.
Ray, your group?
Our group, we started off by giving it a prompt, 65-inch TV. What were the length and width dimensions? So, and then we asked it to do a related scenario using the framework from the new math project. And so it then put it in a manufacturing context and said, you need to manufacture a monitor, like the kind of display monitor we have inside the wall of this room, for instance. And it gave it some specs saying that because of, like, some reason, it needed to be 65 H diagonal and went through that. And I think that Tom and I found it interesting. The first approach it used was sort of a vector approach, and the second one was more of a trig approach. And so we were both thinking of more of like a, you know, beginning high school level approach of defining variables and using Pythagorean theorem with some simple algebra, but the kind of solution it gave was using more sophisticated mathematics. So it makes you think that, okay, well, in a manufacturing scenario, maybe, and think tech students at the community college or in, junior and senior level, they probably need to know trig, but maybe not the way we teach trig in schools. And maybe they need to know vectors, but not the way we teach vectors. Maybe we need to know other things. So it might be time to revisit the standards. You know, and we had a conversation with Ron about geometric dimensionality and tolerances, which there's a lot of math that people need to know that we don't teach. And so I think the AI part is very interesting, but also connecting math to the real world and what we can learn, what the needed math project can teach, math and science in general, to make the math and science that we teach meaningful and useful for students. And so maybe it's not too crazy to think about education and workforce together, because how are people going to actually use this in their jobs and also in everyday life?
Can I follow up on that, Greg? I mean, I had made a note before we started the conversations. I had just typed a note for myself that, I mean, what I'm saying is not new or, you know, but this, the idea of why not let learners go work in these environments, which obviously we do have, you know, we have those opportunities now, but I mean, maybe that's even a structural, systemic sort of thing that if we want, you know, industry that wants, or any workplace that wants people to learn how to work in that workplace, then okay, let's go let them work in the workplace, but then also use educators as facilitators rather than, you know, we can't, as Sarah was saying, we can't use every skill possible in every K-12 learning environment, but if we allow educators to be facilitators of collaboration and reflectiveness with learners and with people in workplaces, then maybe that's the best of both worlds. Yeah, I mean, and still, we want K-12 education to be engaging and meaningful, so we want to be able to use engaging and meaningful tasks and activities, but not expecting that alone is going to prepare a student to walk right into a workplace and know how to do it. Yeah.
50 years, 60 years ago, when I was in school, it was required. I had to do woodworking, metalwork, and drafting. But that was not an option. That was required part of the curriculum in 8th grade. And so, so it's possible to give students exposure to some things like that. And so we went to the other extreme of everybody's going to get a bachelor's degree. Well, that's still not happening 50 years later or whatever.
Or should it?
Or should it? Yeah, but there's lots of other options. And nowadays, the technical kinds of stuff that is going on in manufacturing, you still need to know how to communicate using words. You need to understand science, and you need to know something about how government works, because you're not going to be a coder. And so but we should rethink the curriculum and maybe have the pendulum swing back more toward having practicality. And what's practical now is different from what it was 60 years ago. Right? The kinds of jobs people have, the decisions you make in your everyday life about health and finances are different from what you were making 60 years ago. So it's as we revise the standards again for what should be taught, like that in math and science, we should bear that in mind.
Brad, your group?
Well, I just said, ask me a math problem, and it gave me this thing about a CNC machine. And then it would join me.
And we asked
And then we're trying to figure out what all this means, and it says, the obvious formula of the feed rate equals the chip load times the number of flutes times the spindle speed. And I said, what's going on? So I tried to get a picture of it.
Let's go with the math.
Good on it.
So I tried to get a picture of it, and then I hit my limit. So
Didn't it literally use the word obvious?
no, it just said obvious.
Okay, sorry.
After the picture, it had several options of what kind of picture.
Yeah,
So we had to go through all that, so we were using up these water bottles left, right?
it did do this schematic thing.
Oh.
Right, it gave us a schematic diagram. That doesn't help me understand what the things are, Table, workpiece, tool. I don't know.
You want me to tell you?
Yes.
Sure.
So on CNC, it's generic because it doesn't matter whether it's a lathe or whatever.
What does
Work
CNC mean?
Computer numerical control. So most machinery today, the computer is either moving the workpiece and the spindle, or it's moving the spindle around on a stationary workpiece. So cutting is going to depend on how fast your spindle is turning, right? Because you're presenting, and then how many flutes is how many cutting edges, whatever you're cutting with has. It's like a saw blade might have 60 of them, but you might have a 2-flute bit that's just turning like this.
Yes.
And so how fast that can interact with the workpiece is a function of how many flutes there are, how fast the spindle is turning, and then how fast you're moving the workpiece or moving into the workpiece. So those are the parts of
See,
your
to me, a
equation.
flute is a musical instrument.
Yeah.
Never champagne.
I'm calling myself CNC. CN.
But even like a 3D printer is really a CNC machine. You're just dropping pieces of plastic, but you're telling it in an XYZ space where to drop those pieces of plastic. So,
Okay,
but that gets to the real one question I had. So in that example we had where you're coming on a diagonal on a rectangle, from math to the real world, you have to make a line has a length dimension, but in the real world, a line has a length and a width dimension, and it has sides, right? And it does it in math. So you have a rectangle. Well, where is this rectangle on these pieces of metal that I'm putting together? Is this the inside part of the rectangle? Is it the outside part of the rectangle? That all makes difference. So.
Is there anyone online that would like to share their experience?
I offhand don't have the open eye on my computer at the moment, but I would like to answer Greg's question in terms, our manufacturing engineering technology people absolutely had trig, and they were really very good at it, Greg. So that's not a uncommon thing for any engineering technician to really know trig.
Anyone else from our online community?
I love this potential for student teachers. Not arguments, but getting them to think the logic of a lesson plan is so difficult. They think they have a brilliant idea and they're so excited about it. They just can't get it across to the students. So having, of course, the University of Dayton had their own format and so forth, and the cooperating teachers would always tell them, you will never do this again. Unless you go to unless you're looking at ORC lesson plans or something like that and have a format in mind. But having them at least get the ideas and see that, yes, everybody does use a format of some kind. There is a logic to how you put together a lesson plan. That to me is so exciting. I'm actually, my daughter just switched from working in a hospital to working in a school as a speech pathologist. And she is at the age of 50 doing lesson plans for the first time. So she is just, it's just they call it the procrastinator's lesson plan time on Sunday nights when she's putting together her lesson. So I am so anxious. I actually put in speech language pathology, and it came up, in 5 seconds with a whole week's worth of lessons in all the areas she has to cover. So I am, there are several people I had told about the Chat GPT presentation we had a year ago or 2 years ago. Now I'm going to harp on them again to try it. This is exciting.
Well, we have at least Reed, I don't know if David's in the wings or not, but I wondered if either of them had some idea what Brad's problem was when he hit the limit and was unable to do anything else.
By the way, what was the limit?
It was red.
It was a red
It
letter.
was just a red message, but it was only a limit. And I went to regular Chat GPT for me, and I was able to do stuff.
Yeah, I see David up there, maybe pin him so we can see him big and he might be able to address the question.
Picture of,
Yeah.
If he talks or if Rita talks, they'll get big.
David's unmuted.
Oh yeah. Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So you entered a lot of text and you saw a context window limit error and it was red.
Yes.
Okay, so I think one way around that is if you're working with a custom GPT, you could just upload a very long document and it would be able to like break that document up into chunks and then reference whatever it needs from that document. It uses this is technical, but it uses RAG, retrieval augmented generation. So it'll split the huge piece of text up into chunks and then it will try to find what's similar.
I wasn't uploading anything. I asked a bunch of very short questions and follow-up questions, but the issue seemed to be when I tried to draw a picture.
Oh, yeah, we asked for it, give us.
I wanted a picture.
Oh, okay. It's possible that we don't have the image generation enabled for that GPT.
Okay, so then it's not a very helpful error method.
Yeah, what did it say?
You have reached your limit. Try again later.
Interesting. Okay.
How long is later?
Yeah, that's not a helpful error message at all, because if image generation is not enabled and you're asking it to generate an image and it gives you that error message, yeah, that error message is definitely not helpful.
But after I hit the error message, I tried really hard things like 3 + 4 and I still had reached the limit.
Well, that is weird. I'll look into that to see what that means.
All right, we have reached our limit of thinking without food. And it's lunchtime here at the ODNR. So those of you online, we will see you back at 1 o'clock.
Thank you.